Well, congrats to everyone watching this. You made it to the end of 2024. What a year it's been. Some good, some bad, big changes coming to the industry, records about to be smashed, manufacturers rising and falling. So let's put it all together and count it down. These are the top 10 theme park stories of 2024. Before I start, I want to thank my new Patreons, Desio Wolf, Queen Maxine, Alpengeist Enjoyer, Jennifer Brown, and Sam Block. If you want to get bonus access, bonus content, and get your name on this fancy Patreon screen at the end of each video, click the link below and join. I normally just run down everything that happened from January through December, but this year I reached out to my YouTube audience and had you submit all your ideas and I tallied up the votes. In the end, you did a great job pointing out the most impactful stories of 2024, and I think the ranking is very solid. Before we get into the top 10, let's talk about some of the smaller stories. We had a lot of details for upcoming projects revealed this year. Epic Universe has been rolling out animations section by section, announcing its official opening date of May 22nd, and yes, I will be there that day. We have been waiting for the big volcano replacement ever since before COVID, and we finally learned about it this year, the B&M Wing Rapterra. We learned about a new park coming in Mexico, Vedanta World, focusing on the beauty of nature, and they'll have one spectacular Vekoma. That should open in 2026. Also, a chocolate theme park coming to Brazil, Cacao Park. That should open in 2027. At home, we had two of our biggest chains commit billions of dollars to future projects. Six Flags pouring their $1 billion into the next 2 years. This includes Atmospheria at Canada's Wonderland, Wrath of Rakshasa at Great America, and some mystery projects in 2026. This includes intriguing new coasters at Great Adventure and Magic Mountain, and a record-breaking dive coaster at Over Texas. Disney is doing more of the heavy lifting, committing to $60 billion to pour into the theme parks. And given that one day at their park cost me $750 for 4 people, I think they can afford it. On a smaller scale, Mattel announced a new park coming to Kansas City, Kansas, and several more parks to come in the future. Over in the Netherlands, we saw a brand new kind of dynamic motion stage ride being built, Dan's Macabre at Efteling. Part ride, part show. It'll be interesting if Intamin builds more of these in the future, possibly for a Disney or Universal park. We had some accidents this year, including a man dying after jumping the fence at Banshee at Kings Island, being struck by a train, as well as some derailments that luckily didn't cause any injuries. That included Zeus at Mount Olympus, Harley Quinn at Great Adventure, and Kid Flash at Fiesta Texas. In fact, both Kid Flash coasters are non-operational, this one and the one at Over Georgia, as Skyline is currently 0 for 4 on their original coaster designs, and we may have seen the last of their models. There was also a major explosion at Leesburg's new indoor water park, Oceana, that happening while they were building it. This killed one worker and destroyed the park, but 5 months after the fire, Leesburg committed to rebuild it and open it for 2026. Dorney Park opened their first original ground-up coaster in almost 20 years, Iron Menace being a B&M dive, but it didn't get a great reception. From its media day, the jolt at the end became an internet meme, and its weird shakiness became the topic of conversation. That didn't just end with Iron Menace. The same reports are coming out of Florida and their 2 new B&Ms, Penguin Trek at SeaWorld Orlando and Phoenix Rising at Busch Gardens Tampa. We'll have to keep an eye on the new B&Ms coming next year. That includes Wrath of Rakshasa, and another one coming to Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Big Bad Wolf, The Wolf's Revenge. 16 years after retiring Big Bad Wolf, and 23 years after removing Drakenfire from the park, that plot of land will be used for this tribute to the beloved Aero Classic, now a B&M family inverted coaster. This continues the trend of family coasters sweeping the US. Carowinds following Busch Gardens' lead, Knott's getting on board, and 2 new Vekoma family boomerangs coming to Kings Island and Holiday World. New Age Vekoma has finally hit our shores, and it looks like they're here to stay. We have 2 tilt coasters opening next year, one at Kodoland and one at Cedar Point. Also, the Flash Vertical Velocity will finally be ready. 2 world-class coasters got major changes this year, and both are seen as bittersweet. First, Skyrush got new lap bars, replacing the terrible ones they used to have, making this ride actually rideable, but some people don't like how they kill the ride's laterals. I don't know about that, but they don't kill my legs anymore, and that's what I care about. Then, the true bittersweet change, Lightning Rod's chain lift. Nobody likes the new chain lift more than the LSM launch, but the cold hard truth is, the ride is way more reliable now, and open Lightning Rod is better than closed Lightning Rod, even though it's no longer the ultra elite ride it used to be. In 2024, we also saw 2 coasters get rethemed, Cedar Fair losing their license to use the Dale Earnhardt theme. So, Intimidator kept its car theme and is now Thunder Striker, and I-305 took a longer path to get where it needed to go, using the temporary Project 305 name in 2024, announcing its official name later in the year, Pantherion. This will now be orange and black, and fit into the Jungle Expedition area of the park. We had a few park closures in 2024, some complete, some partial, the permanent one being Gillian's Wonderland Pier, being a stalwart on the Jersey Shore since 1929, and 2 parks closing down their rides for the year, Lakemont Park in Altoona, Pennsylvania being one of them, sporting 2 classic wooden coasters, including the world's oldest coaster in Leap the Dips, also Marineland in Niagara Falls in Canada. This park has had negative rumors around its future for a while, and this year they closed down their rides, including Dragon Mountain. However, there is one other 2024 closure that makes the top 10. Number 10, Steel Curtain's all-season closure. Opening in 2019 and having tons of problems since then, Kennywood made the tough decision back in April to close Steel Curtain for the entirety of 2024. Holding the North American record for the coaster with the most inversions, they decided the small band-aids would no longer cut it. And even though taking down your biggest ride for the whole season would hurt the park in the short term, they were aiming for a long-term fix. Apparently, the ride has structural issues, and back in October, the park gave an update saying, "You will notice new columns added to the structure," hoping this will be a permanent solution. The coaster is slated to reopen in 2025, and we'll see if we see the ride running more consistently. Number 9, the Sirens Curse saga. When Cedar Point announced Snake River Falls would close in 2024, and they started teasing a water-themed attraction in the late summer, it made sense they were planning some water ride to replace Snake River Falls. But no, that was just a decoy. They announced a tilt coaster called Sirens Curse, placing it right next to Valraven. This smelled fishy right from the start, from the late announcement on September 19th. Usually, Cedar Fair announces new rides in August. Alpenfury was unveiled 6 weeks prior, so this seems like it may have not been in the original plans. We also knew that Six Flags Mexico had tilt coaster track in its parking lot, and it did not take long to realize it was probably all one and the same. Sure enough, it was, and that track was moved to Ohio shortly after. Apparently, there were some permit issues in Mexico. This ride needed a new home, and the new chain decided to move this to Cedar Point for some reason. Maybe this reason was to hedge their bets on Top Thrill 2's success in 2025. Maybe not, but I don't see why else they would give this ride to Cedar Point. This real-time theme park soap opera was a fascinating story to cover back in September. Number 8, Formula Rosa closes for the season. Back in January, Ferrari World Abu Dhabi closed the world's fastest coaster without warning. This Intamin hydraulic launch coaster opened in 2010 and has the world record at 149 miles an hour, a record that's about to fall in Saudi Arabia. The park has been very quiet about the problem and its progress. Apparently, the launch cable snapped, and back in March, the park said they didn't have any updates and it would still be down indefinitely. Some people wondered if it would ever reopen, another dagger in the already dying hydraulic launch coaster catalog. But in December, this started testing again, and on December 22nd, it reopened after 11 months. So, we now know that closing down for good is not in the docket, and hopefully, the soon-to-be second fastest coaster in the world has a lot of life left in it. Number 7, Dodo closes down for good. It was a rough year for extreme launch coasters, and where Formula Rosa looks like it's on the rebound, Dodo had its lights officially turned out. This S&S thrust air coaster was one of the first, coming the same year as the prototype, Hypersonic XLC, and that was extremely problematic and only lasted 7 seasons. Dodo ran for 16 years, closed for renovation and reopened in 2017, replaced the top hat with a vertical loop, and made the launch even faster, 0 to 112 in 1.6 seconds. That's almost impossibly fast, and maybe a bit too much for the human body. In December 2020, an investigation was launched on the ride causing injuries, including broken bones, and by August 2021, they chose to shut the ride down. It's been in limbo for more than 2 years, but in March, they confirmed what we already figured. Dodo would be removed. This one hurts. It had a launch with the power we will probably never see again. Number 6, Six Flags New Orleans finally being demolished. Opening in 2000 as Jazzland, acquired by Six Flags in 2002 and renamed Six Flags New Orleans, and then flooded and permanently closed in 2005 following Hurricane Katrina. This park has just been sitting there for almost 2 decades, a haunting reminder of what once was and the storm that crushed the city of New Orleans. Some rides were salvageable and relocated to other parks, but everything that couldn't be reused was just left there. Last year, plans to redevelop the land were approved, and this year they finally started the demolition process. That process was stopped after about a week. Apparently, the contractor didn't have the right certification for the job, but the demolition plan is still in motion, and soon it will all be gone. Number 5, Mck Rides fueling Europe's dominance in 2024. Mck Rides was my biggest winner of 2024, and it's not hard to see why. They opened the 2 best coasters of 2024, the Hypercoaster Hyperia at Thorpe Park, And the first ever striker coaster, Vulture, at the Mck-owned Europa Park in Germany. You don't often see one manufacturer tower above the competition like this, but Mck Rides stock is rising fast, and they're keeping the ball rolling, building another striker for Austria's Phantasiana, Helios, and 2 coasters for Epic Universe, including the amazing-looking Stardust Racers. And they have their next extreme spinner coming to Germany's Holiday Park in 2026. Mck helped Europe dominate the US this year when it came to new coasters, getting help from Intamin, opening their new hot racer, Mahuka at Wallaby Roan Alps, and Vekoma opening their new suspended thrill coaster, Fianna Force at Ireland's Emerald Park. Number 4. Falcons Flight's completion. Back in 2019, we first heard about Six Flags Qiddiya in Saudi Arabia, and we saw the first animation for the world's tallest and fastest and longest coaster. Honestly, it looked like some weird joke, defying gravity to get up to the top of a cliff and dropping down over 600 feet. But then, they broke ground, the ride went vertical. I don't even think most of us expected it to get that far, and I personally thought this ride would be built, but it would be nowhere near that crazy animation. In 2023, Intamin came out with another animation, and that included the stats, and we realized, yeah, they really meant everything they said they were gonna do. Over the course of 2024, we saw grainy pictures of the ride's layout taking shape, and in December, Intamin released their official photos of when the last piece of track was installed. Indeed, Falcons Flight is complete. 14,000 feet long, 640 feet tall. Now, we just have to see if it can hit 155 miles an hour and sustain that when it opens in 2025. Number 3. The merger. We learned about this late last year, Six Flags and Cedar Fair becoming one giant regional theme park company. Some people thought the government would nix the deal, but alas, on July 2nd, it was complete. We just have one company now called the Six Flags Entertainment Corporation, and Cedar Fair's CEO Richard Zimmerman leading the new company. They're slow-rolling the public-facing part of this merger, the chain still being separate but offering the other chain's parks as part of a $100 all-parks passport add-on, and people are nervous and optimistic for the future. Their first act as one chain seemed to be reviewing all the rides that cost them too much money and tear those down without telling anyone. We've said goodbye to coasters like Lava Bora, Nighthawk, Anaconda, and others we'll get to later. This has soured a lot of people's opinion of the new chain, and really has not served as a good first impression. Number 2. The myriad of delays, featuring Top Thrill 2. I made a video about 2024 being a bad year in the coastal world, and that was even before we learned about all these sudden closures. The poster child of this mess is Top Thrill 2, the much anticipated Zamperla renovation of Top Thrill Dragster, an LSM swing launch replacing the original hydraulic launch. It had all the rave reviews coming back from its first riders, and 8 days into its life, it shut down and never reopened. Apparently, the trains could not withstand the forces and needed to be redesigned. This was a black eye on both Cedar Point and Zamperla as they try to regroup for a 2025 redemption tour. Top Thrill 2 actually opened in 2024. Others weren't so lucky. 2 of 3 Six Flags coasters never saw one rider. Georgia Surfer at Six Flags Over Georgia, and the Flash Vertical Velocity at Great Adventure. We thought Codaland would be ready with their 2 new coasters. That was pushed to 2025, and Mattel Adventure Park in Arizona held on to hope for a late 2024 opening as long as they could, but eventually they gave in and pushed their opening to 2025 also. Hyperia looked like that might be a disaster also, closing down for weeks after its opening day for repairs, but they figured it out and it's had a good year. In America, we had more major coasters delayed than actually open, so it can really only go up from here. Number 1. Great Adventure's tragic 50th anniversary debacle. You only get one 50th anniversary. We've seen parks crush this celebration in the past, and Great Adventure was lined up to do great things. They had a new coaster that looks like it could be top 5 in the park. They opened their new Savannah Sunset Resort and Spa in their safari. They had their history plastered all over the windows in their stores, but they got off to a bad start when they got a late start in the Flash, and confirmed in August they wouldn't open on its 50th anniversary year. Then, it got worse. It's clear they didn't expect to tear down a bunch of rides on the northeastern side of the park. They even had a season pass ad saying you could experience King to Ka for the rest of 24 and all of 2025, but once the chains merged, everything changed. The park said nothing. Markers started appearing around the Golden Kingdom. A few prominent YouTubers said with confidence this would be the final run for King to Ka. The ride shut down for the season in November, and a few days later, the park announced that not only was King to Ka done, so was Zumanjaro, Green Lantern, Twister, the Parachutes, and the Skyride. Maybe all will be forgiven if that 2026 record-breaking launch coaster turns out to be awesome, but this was an ugly way to finish off a bad 50th anniversary. Not just ripping out all those rides, but being super secretive about it. Great Adventure's 50th anniversary fail got the most votes, and I agree with it. There was no bigger story this year than the days leading up to King to Ka's closure, the enthusiasts flocking to the park for one last ride, and the ultimate announcements that followed. It's too bad the biggest story of the year had to be a negative one, but that's 2024. That's a wrap on this video. Thanks to everyone who sent in your idea. Again, as a group, you all nailed it. If you have any other stories to add, or have any comments on this list, sound off in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and want to see more like this, please give me a sub. Also, check out my second channel, where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.